So let's talk about a little bit about the Belgian Grand Prix this weekend. And you guys can let me know in the comment section any questions about what you guys want to talk about with the Belgian Grand Prix. But I think the biggest thing that we, obviously know with the Belgian Grand Prix is it will be raining. So I've seen the forecasts even for the sprint race this weekend and everything. There are at least 50 to 60% chance every single day of rain. Now, hopefully, we don't get a situation like we had a couple years ago with the Belgian Grand Prix where we had that farce of a race where they try to start it and it just never works out. I'm hoping we don't get that and we actually get the race in the rain. But a lot of questions are going to be answered this weekend. Is Ferrari's rear suspension upgrade that they've been testing out in Mugello, is that, the last piece of the puzzle that they needed to have this car fully upgraded the way they needed it? Some people are saying yes, some people saying no. We won't know data until we get to Spa, I think, as far as that goes. And then, you've got McLaren, who really hasn't had to do a whole lot of upgrades. They're heads and shoulders above the rest. They've literally left every team in their dust. Red Bull has literally fallen off the planet. They're now fourth in the constructor standings. I just have a really hard time, especially with the weather coming up, with the weather being a potential this weekend, that we still don't see more of the McLaren domination that we've seen so far this season. Now, whether it's Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri, I mean, there's no telling. Lando's been on a tear as of recent. Luckily that 3-week break came at a perfect time for them, that I think Oscar had time to cool down after Silverstone and everything that happened there. So that I think will help Oscar out. Now, had you gone into another race just after Silverstone with Oscar feeling the way that he did, I think we could have seen a massive point swing when it comes to Oscar. I think we could have seen Lando take the points lead because I think Oscar was so far in his head after Silverstone that I think it was truly messing with him. What's going on, John? Most are rooting for Oscar if it has to be a McLaren. And that's the thing is... oh, hey, by the way. I think there's a good mixture of people that are cheering for Oscar or cheering for Lando. I think we hear a lot more from the Oscar folks, the fans that are a fan of Oscar Piastri. We hear a lot more from them than I think we do Lando. Although if you look at Twitter, you would know that Lando's the main guy. Hold for P2 wet race demon. With the upgrades that Sauber's made, I mean, I think a lot of people counted them out early in the season, and they've been constantly bringing the right upgrades that have made this car now something that's going to get, is going to be, fighting top 10s all the time. CMKGSM says, for the win, I think Oscar is going to win. Last year, he showed his skill at Spa, but the Silverstone situation could affect him a bit. And that was what I was... Yeah. I think that's a situation that we're going to... I think if it affects him again in Spa, I think we're going to look back on this season and we're going to say that this was the point maybe Oscar took a downturn, was letting Silverstone, I think, get the best of him. When in reality, a lot of what he did was on him. Like, I think I think all of us as Formula One, I think for the most part, most of us can say that what Oscar did was on him. And, for everything that occurred towards the end of that race where he asked the team to switch them back and put him in, like, that was crazy, and it did not have a good look for Oscar. But if he lets that affect him this weekend going into Spa, where we got a potential of rain, we could seriously say that this could be the downturn of Oscar. Or, Silverstone can be the start of that downturn, and now Spa even becomes, even more of a downturn. But I think Oscar does well this weekend. Literally it's a McLaren 1-2. I think you could put either one of those guys in the 1-2. I just think Lando right now has the momentum. And so I'm going to say Lando Norris gets victory. Oscar Piastri gets second. I think a Ferrari ends up on the podium again. Whether it's Lewis or whether it's Charles. And that's the thing too, Twisty. Oscar hasn't really made any mistakes either, so I think he will have a little downward. And downward spiral has that weird connotation to it, but yeah, I think it's absolutely right. I think every driver goes through it. When you look at, race seasons, they have this weird stretch of races where, they're just absolutely nowhere. They have a bad result or two. Maybe they have a DNF in there, and we could definitely see that out of Oscar. But again, that to me is going to get tied back to what happened in Silverstone 3 weeks ago. And I think a lot of people are going to point to that and say that was the moment that may have started that downturn. But I think the Ferraris are going to be there. I'm still not totally sold on the Mercedes, and Kimi Antonelli's had some, didn't have a great weekend in Silverstone. George didn't as well, but he fought his ass off to get, to at least put himself to try to get in a position to at least score some decent points. I'm not totally sold on Mercedes yet. John says, I doubt it. That was more of a brain fart than a skill or formation. And that's what I'm hoping, that it was mainly a brain fart issue and it passes him. But I'm not going to be surprised either if all of a sudden we're looking and saying, Oscar's made, a mistake in Spa. He made a mistake in Hungary, and going into the summer break, he's made 3 pretty large mistakes that maybe cost him the title. Or at least cost him the lead in the championship with Lando. But if I'm going to say the finish of the podium, I think Lewis gets podium this weekend. I have a feeling Lewis, with the upgrades that Ferrari's made and the new suspension that they've added to the car, they've fixed the problem with the plank and the plank wear. Jay loves food, bro. Exactly. I think they figured out that plank issue with this suspension. And that's what they've been touting, is the fact that the wear rate may change now with this new suspension. And this could be a turnaround for him as well. I think he needs a really good set of results the rest of the season to feel comfortable, making that move to Ferrari like he did last season. So I kind of think that's where he's at. I feel like Hamilton will get a podium or win. I feel like it's coming for him. I feel like if this suspension is everything that Ferrari and all the technical experts are saying it is, this could be a huge turnaround for Ferrari, and they can make a second half run. You know, especially being, you know, second place in the constructor standings. Hey, Blaze is here. Good to see you, Blaze. I'm glad to see you, sir. Hope you're feeling much better after yesterday. But being young, Twisty, but being young, he can bounce back. Oscar is that type of calm person to be able to overlook problems. Absolutely. Absolutely. And even though he's young, I think he's the person that if he were to have that downturn, I think he would be able to bring it back. So I would agree with that. It's going to be, I still think it's going to be a fun championship the rest of the season, regardless. To see Lando and Oscar go at it. And, you know, if somehow Charles or Lewis work their way back into this, or Max does, or let's see, Blaze. I think Lewis and Ferrari have a real good chance. They've looked super competitive over the last few races, and we know how good Lewis performs here like last year. Yeah, and I think I think it's all, I think a lot of it's dependent on this big upgrade that they're talking about with the suspension, the rear suspension. Because they've changed the rear suspension. They've also had to change a little bit of from what I understood, they had to change a little bit of the side pod and the engine cover to fit this new suspension. So I'll be interested to see if that... But see, a tenth or so is key. And especially if they can get around the setup. Filming day is what? Yeah, it's only 100 kilometers. Sorry. I got to make sure I say it right. It's only 100 kilometers. Mert55 AK, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate the follow, sir. I appreciate it. But even 100 kilometers, I think that still sets you up, you know, gives you a good baseline, and you're able to start running some data off of that. And you're going to be able to start working on setups for Spa, at least now going into this, you know, going into the rest of this week. They're going to definitely be able to hopefully get a setup in the wet and the dry that will work for all the parts that are on the car. Blaze, obviously I'll be cheering for Oscar as a fellow Aussie, and I totally understand that. Absolutely. I mean, Oscar's still, I think Oscar's a very good fan favorite. So I think he's, you know, and like John said in the chat, he's still a betting favorite as well. So, I mean, it's going to be a good weekend. But also remember, guys, I'm going to mention this now, and I'll put it in my Discord. If you do ! socials, you can get into my Discord server. I'll put out the schedule for this weekend and when I'll be live streaming. This weekend, obviously, I stream the watch along. I do watch alongs for the Grand Prix weekend. I'm still debating on if I'm going to do for sprint qualifying for the sprint race. Because it is like, the sprint race comes at like 5 a.m. here in the United States. But I will do regular qualifying and then obviously the race as well. But I'll put the schedule out in my Discord server for that. So you guys will be able to join me over here on Twitch or over on my YouTube channel. You guys will be able to catch it over there. I think the rain is going to be harsh in Belgium. Sorry, let me go back up. So Blaze said I wouldn't count out Max for that Red Bull, but that Red Bull is really not good enough in terms of the race pace, and they haven't done anything to, yeah, oh yeah, there's gonna be rain. they haven't really done any like massive updates to fix the problem for both Max and for Yuki. But I think we also knew that like Red Bull, after losing Adrian Newey, I don't think they had a clue where to go after that. Let's see. Yeah, the store, I've heard it's about 50-60% every single day in Belgium. See, and that's what I said too. I feel like Lando's, I would love to say, Oscar is going to win this race. I just have a feeling Lando's going to pull out another victory and really make this a fight for the World Drivers' Championship between the two. So I would totally. I'm gonna say Lando in victory incoming this weekend. He can drive Spa. I think we've seen moments where he can't, but I think in the grand scheme, I think he can. He's is better in the wet than Oscar most of the time. He did show a little bit. He did show some speed in Silverstone when we had the wet weather. Let's see, but also Hamilton always cooks in the sprints. Yep, we could definitely see a Hamilton sprint victory. If the Ferraris get a good qualifying in the sprint, we could definitely see another Ferrari sprint win. He was flying in 21 before the crash. 2024 dropping from 4th to 8th. In 2024, oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, he did. Yeah, it was a pretty bad bottle job, but I think he's kind of silenced some of the critics on some of the bottling. His starts have gotten a little bit better this season than they were last season.